While we're on the subject of wrong, I would like to state that the views of a lady's age are strictly Pastor John Thompson's, and it in no way, no shape, no form represent the views of the rest of the staff nor Bethlehem Baptist Church. Any nasty letters that would like to be written, I encourage you to write to Pastor John Thompson, care of Bethlehem Baptist Church.
I think I just smelled a bus.
Now that we've got some of the important stuff out of the way, we will be looking at Joshua chapter 5 this morning. Joshua chapter 5. And I need a moment to come back into normalcy because I was really worried I was going to be in the doghouse this afternoon. Joshua chapter 5. Starting in verse 1. As soon as all the kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan to the west, and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea, heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan for the people of Israel until they had crossed over, well, their hearts melted, and there was no longer any spirit in them because of the people of Israel. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the sons of Israel a second time." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the sons of Israel at Gibeath Haaraloth. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who had came out of Egypt, all the men of war, had died in the wilderness on the way after they had come out of Egypt. Though all the people who came out had been circumcised, yet all the people who were born on the way in the wilderness, after they had come out of Egypt, had not been circumcised. For the people of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, the men of war who came out of Egypt, perished because they did not obey the voice of the Lord. The Lord swore to them that he would not let them see the land that the Lord had sworn to their fathers to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children, whom he raised up in their place, that Joshua circumcised. For they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. When the circumcising of the whole nation was finished, they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach from Egypt from you." And so the name of that place is called Gilgal to this day. Let's pause there. Let's understand what's going on, and then we will continue. You see, this is not the first time the children of Israel thought they were coming into the promised land. Years prior to this, spies were sent to look at the land, come back to Moses, and give an accounting to say just what was going on. A reconnaissance unit, so to speak. And when they came back, not just the majority, an overwhelming majority, in fact, 10 of the 12 said, "Man, they're big, they're bad. I don't think so, Moses." Now, of course, that's in the Wiley translation. Those aren't the exact words, but that was the idea that they gave. Only Caleb and Joshua thought, "God is with us, we will take it." So the children of Israel, in one of those moments, one of those decisive times in their life, had the option: go forward with God or wimp out. At that time, the Israelites chose to wimp out. Hence, they were left 40 years to wander the desert until that generation that wouldn't rise up and do what was called for would pass away. We find ourselves now on the cusp again, coming into the promised land. But there's this issue. Do you remember in the Old Testament prior to this why circumcision came about? You see, it wasn't just to pick on these little boys. It was the sign of the acceptance of the covenant. That God would be their God. They would be God's people. They would work, they would act out of God's desires. They would become obedient to whatever call God placed on their lives. Not just the young man, but the whole community. But it was a sign for the men to take up and lead. But rampant disobedience hit the people. For whatever reason, they thought the outside world was just too big, too bad, too powerful. They decided to hide from their responsibility. And in so doing, it is tough to claim, I will follow all of God's desires on my life if I choose to be disobedient when He calls. So you see, again, there was this problem. There was a brokenness. There was a break in the way things should be. And with the covenant fractured, the covenant broken, the children of God not living up to their responsibilities, they weren't living up to their ritualistic responsibilities either. They said, if we choose not to follow, then let's not follow all the way. Circumcision had fallen off. They weren't calling themselves God's people. But now things are different. They have crossed over the Jordan River, and the Jordan River dried up to nothing. They walked across on dry land so much that Scripture recalls two people groups, the Amorites and the Canaanites. Their heart melted. There's another way to say that. They were scared. They heard the stories. They knew of this people. They knew of these people's gods. And they knew they were coming. Joshua hears from God, and he decides, if we're undertaking this business, it is best if we return to the way things should be. Let us live up to our obligations. Let us come back. Let us restore the covenant. In so doing, let's mark ourselves as covenant holders, covenant bearers, the true people of God's. While the people of Israel encamped at Gilgal, they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month in the evening on the plains of Jericho. And the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes and parched grain. And manna ceased the day after they ate of the produce of the land. And there was no longer manna for the people of Israel, but they ate the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. You see, with the people's hearts in the right place, they began to celebrate what God had done, the Passover meal. Commemorating the great action of God to lead His people out of Egypt. Something that the whole community would share together, not just for their benefit, but as a bonding back to God. They were becoming the people God had desired for them to be, the people they would want to be. Incredible things were happening. It was spiritual revival. No longer was it necessary for them to eat of this stuff that fell from the sky. Manna. Literally translated, what's this? Can you imagine 40 years of a diet of, what's this? They no longer need it because they've come into a land that produces fruit, honey. It produces the delicacies that they could only have dreamt of. God had taken care of them for the entire time, but now, after they restore the covenant, after they celebrate who God is and what He has done, He has opened up a land that now, instead of miraculous acts, crops can grow. There's rain, there's a breeze, things will grow and they can eat to their heart's content in a promised land. Can you begin to imagine the excitement and jubilation? You know, I admit, I have never had to survive on food. But there's still a few dishes that my wife makes that my mouth still waters and it's, oh my goodness, is this good? Have you all had that experience? Ever had, not necessarily just with my wife, just have you had that experience that you have this, oh my goodness, good food, and you just, it doesn't matter how many times you have it, you would look forward to leftovers of these particular dishes. They're just that good. Doesn't it excite you? Doesn't it put you in a better mood? Doesn't it make you think, oh, I could take on the world? Good food. Ho, 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 ho. Perhaps for the first time in these lives, they're having real stuff. They're having a banquet that they couldn't have imagined just a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. God had surely provided them their heart's desires. But you notice it only comes after they return to Him. This has nothing to do about their capableness or their ability to cross rivers or their ability to defeat enemies. It lies solely in their ability to be obedient to what has been told them. That was a really good place to say that, Carol. So, after the required period of recovery, the next big moment in the life of Israel is about to take place. Picking up in verse 13. When Joshua was by Jericho, little editorial, Jericho, that first major city just across the Jordan, a city surrounded and fortified by, oh my goodness, strong walls. Jericho. When Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and he looked, and behold, a man was standing before him with his drawn sword in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us, or are you for our adversaries? Let's pause. Joshua is the leader of the Israelites. He has led them across the Jordan. He has led them to the brink of taking the promised land. They have tasted the fruit of the promised land. They know how good it is. And right in front of them lies their first city. We have heard previously that the hearts of the leaders of this city, their hearts have already melted, having heard the stories about how great this group of people's God is. As any good leader, he's going ahead. He's scouting it out one last time. I'm sure the plans were made. I'm sure he knew what he was going to do, but he is checking to make sure all still seems reasonable. Checking for perhaps any last-minute tweaks of the plan. He's alone. No reason to draw the Jerichoans' interest. No reason for them to be alarmed. No reason for them to become aware. One sole individual won't stir up an army. While he's doing this, he sees someone in front of him. And based on his communication, this isn't just a little nothing, wimpy, puny someone. It's someone, and they have their sword drawn, ready for battle. And Joshua asks the most simplistic question imaginable. Are you one of my guys, or are you one of theirs? Just want to know. I want to know what I'm up against. Just tell me. Reasonable question, right? Whew, here we go. Now the fun begins. Verse 14. And the man said, "No, but I am the commander of the army of the Lord, and I now have come." Let's pause. I know I'm not at the end of the verse, but let's pause. How would you react to that? You see this great warrior, and you can tell he's a great warrior, and his sword is drawn, and you ask him, are you on my side or are you on my enemy's side? And the response is, no. He elaborates slightly. I am the commander of the Lord's army, and I'm here. Now, I don't know about you, but that would frighten me, folks. He is giving no additional information. He is not saying that I'm going into battle with you. He is not saying I am going to battle against you. He just says, here I am. Well, I kind of knew that. See, I see you. I'm talking to you. What's behind this? Well, Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshiped and said to him, "What does my Lord say to his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy." And so Joshua did. Are you for me? Are you against me? No. But I am the commander of the Lord's army. Folks, one thing we need to take away from this, if we get nothing else out of the book of Joshua, God does not fight for us. God does not fight against us. God fights for God. Want that to sink in for a minute. We got that? Yes? No? Have no idea what you're talking about, preacher. God fights for God. Now here is the $1,000,000 question. Are you on God's side? That is what the soldier is saying. I am here to do God's bidding. I am here to make sure God's will happens. It is my job description to carry out the will of God the Father. And I am here to fight for that. Isn't that a great thing? Isn't that an exciting thing? That's where it stays. The question is, are we fighting for God's side? You see, it's a huge difference. It's like those, y'all remember those pickup games on the playground growing up? Anyone remember them? There were captains. Remember captains? And what did the captains do? They chose out their teams. Now, they both wanted to win, but they kind of picked teams. When you were chosen, we always said that it was my team, but it wasn't our team. We were part of that team. This is kind of the same, only a little different. God is in command. God is the captain. God is in charge, and it's up to us to decide if we wish to play for Him or play against Him. And play is in the most simplistic, utterly underreaching term. Are we with Him or are we against Him? There are no other options. God does not come to us, even when we sign up to be on God's team, God does not fight without reason for us. He fights for Himself. It is up to us to toe the line. It requires us to remain observant and listen. It requires us to take the information He gives us and be obedient to it. There's no other option. There's no other choice. There's no other route to take. So sometimes in our modern society, when we are so caught up in who we are and we are so proud of what we have done, and we storm off taking something in a direction and we say, why won't God bless me? Why isn't God blessing this undertaking? More times than not, we're doing what we want to do as opposed to what God has called us to do. Joshua was out there by himself, looking at the city he was confident he was going to take over. He was met with a harsh, strong voice. The voice of God saying, are you still willing to obey today like you were 40 years ago? It's God's saying, are you ready for this? And this always comes across sounding ugly, but in this case it is right on point. It's God saying, my way, or God help you, the highway. Joshua asks for just a simple request. What do you say to your servant? The words that God used in a bush that did not burn come back to Joshua here. Remove your sandals, for you are on holy ground. You see, anytime we come face to face with the God of creation, anytime that He reveals Himself to us, folks, we're on holy ground. There was nothing super special about that desert area just outside of Jericho. What made it holy was that Joshua had a real live encounter with a real live holy God. And the whole place is overtaken with that holiness. You see, it can't be business as usual anymore. Things have changed. It's not just attack, 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 but it's all under God. God directs. Are we willing to listen? When God commands, even when it sounds crazy, are we willing to follow through? See, that night Joshua got it. Yes, yes, yes. But next week, we'll hear about the next morning. Because you see, when we encounter God for who He is, who He really is, He tends to do things in a very unusual way. And typically, it's to show that He is faithful, that He is good, that He is a God worth following. Revival hit, celebrations were taking place. The children of Israel were excited, and they had no idea yet that Joshua had just met with the Lord. Bethlehem, when was the last time you individually had an experience with God? You know, one of those moments that you didn't expect? You were just out busy doing whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. Gardening, cleaning the house, driving down Powhite Parkway, sitting in a class, talking to a customer. I don't know what it was, but you look up or you listen up and you hear and see the God of all creation. See, those are the moments that change us forever. He invites you to join Him. Join in what He is doing. He doesn't call you to do it all. He doesn't necessarily cause you to develop it all. He just calls you starting to chuckle. He called Joshua then, just like He did James and John and Andrew on the shore, simply to follow me. If you've been called to follow, if you've heard that call, how obedient are you following? Or how obediently are you following? See, all the Israelites left Egypt because God said so. Well, and God kind of tossed them out too. But somewhere in that journey, they got distracted, they got lost, they got confused, so they had to wander around, and everything that they held tight to kind of disappeared. And then God shows up again and He restores it all. In times of revival, God doesn't come to illuminate our hearts and excite our hearts, only to have our hearts excited and illuminated. He does that for the job ahead. He does that for the others that haven't quite gotten there. Because without excitement in our hearts, without courage in our body, we're happy camping out just this side of the promised land. You know, it's in view. We can see it. Boy, does it look nice. But crossing over, I don't know. There are people in that land. That wall looks big. Will you follow him? God will fight for God. And if you're on his side, oh my goodness. But much like Joshua, the choice lies with you. I cannot make that choice for you. Your spouse cannot make that choice for you. The person sitting in front or behind you cannot choose for you. That is left to you. Joshua had that moment that day, one-on-one with a messenger from God. We see, and we will see next week, he chose wisely. He later extended that choice to everyone in his community. And in a month or so, hopefully we get there. But today, whose team have you chosen? For you've seen from Scripture that God does not waffle. God does not just say, boy, I really like Larry, so whatever Larry says, I'll do. As much as Larry may wish that at times. As much as Jack may wish that at times. But God holds tight to his promises and his standards. And it's up to us to adapt ours to his or face the consequences. As our musicians come, I ask you to check your heart. Check your mind. Have you made that decision? Have you come to the rightful thinking that you are part of God's team? God is not part of your team. Won't you stand as we sing and as we praise? If for some reason you have not made that decision yet in your life, we'll ask you to just slide on out of the pew that you're in. Come on down, let us pray, let us talk, and let's see how God can encourage and invigorate you on this day.
I hear